Ahead of the 10th anniversary of his death, Marquette University is honoring the legacy of 1996 graduate James Foley by archiving a vast collection of his work. The freelance journalist was brutally murdered by ISIS while reporting from Syria. I interviewed Foley in 2011 after his first imprisonment in a hostile country, and recently spoke with his mother during an event at Marquette University. In our Sunday morning spotlight, how Diane Foley is carrying on her son's mission of inspiring moral courage, one person at a time. Jim was a storyteller, a prolific writer. Look how much content he fit on one page.
Isn't that incredible? I know. It's incredible. The writing is so tiny.
Included in the 14 physical boxes and 10 terabytes of digital material that make up the James Wright Foley Archives collection at Marquette University are Jim Foley's personal writings. In this one, his first words were, "Prison is a world of small miracles."
It was written when he was in Libya.
In 2011, Diane Foley's son Jim and two other journalists were taken captive in Libya by Muammar Gaddafi's regime.
We did not know if he'd ever come home.
But then came a phone call to the Foley home in New Hampshire.
I just couldn't believe it was his voice.
It was Jim calling from Libya.
And the following week, he was home for his sister's graduation. So the whole thing was a true miracle. It was a miracle. And I think Jim felt that, too.
It's such an honor to have Jim's work here.
Diane and her husband, Dr. John Foley, attended a recent event at Marquette's Raynor Library, where their son's collection will be available to students.
He always had his
aspiring and current journalists and anyone curious about Jim's life and work.
Well, I hope it'll keep Jim's spirit of moral courage alive.
I'm inspired that so many people are going to benefit from Jim's sacrifice.
Tom Durkin and Jim were best friends at Marquette.
He didn't talk about himself. He talked to you, and he listened to you, and he asked you questions. So it wasn't surprising to me that he wanted to be a storyteller, to learn your story and be able to tell them.
After holding on to years of his correspondence with Jim and suitcases filled with items he'd gotten from Jim's parents, Durkin reached out to archivists at Marquette to preserve the writings, including this letter from Libya.
He wrote most of this while being detained, and he snuck it out, and we learned later he snuck it out in his shoe.
My reaction was to jump up and surrender.
I interviewed Jim Foley in 2011 when he returned to Marquette to thank his alma mater for its support during his 44 days in captivity.
I want to thank Marquette.
He told me about the phone call he made to his mom from prison.
She could hear in my voice that I was okay. Like physically I was strong, and emotionally I was doing okay.
And of the candlelight vigil for him at Marquette he watched online that included a touching speech from his dear friend Tom Durkin.
Marquette rallied around me, had the faith and the sense of community to constantly try to help keep me in the media.
After Libya, did you know that he would return to some war zone?
I was afraid he would, because he had told us that he had found his passion. Mom, this is what I meant to do.
A year after his Marquette visit and while covering the civil war in Syria, Jim was kidnapped and tortured by ISIS terrorists who beheaded him 2 years later. August 19th will mark 10 years since Jim's death. How do you find the strength to carry on, Diane?
Jim challenges me, Mike. Jim really does. He challenges me. It's like he handed the torch to me in many ways, and to his dear friends, and colleagues, fellow journalists.
This torch-bearing mother founded and is president of the James W. Foley Legacy Foundation. The nonprofit works to secure the freedom of Americans held captive abroad, prevent future hostage-taking, and promote journalist safety.
More than 122 innocent Americans have come home, and that's Jim's powerful legacy, in my opinion.
Durkin is the foundation's education program director.
I think us knowing that Jim's legacy, that Jim's desire to be a voice for others is going to inspire future generations, it reminds us there is a silver lining.
Diane Foley's new book, American Mother, was released last March. It opens with riveting details of her face-to-face meeting 3 years ago with one of the terrorists convicted of helping to kill her son. Why did you do that?
Well, Jim would have wanted me to. I knew that. Jim would have wanted to hear his story. And as a mom, I wanted him to know who Jim was.
In a federal courthouse in Virginia, this nurse practitioner, devout Catholic and mother of 5, sat across the table from shackled prisoner Alexander Cote.
He expressed a lot of remorse over the course of the 3 days we spoke.
Under a plea bargain that spared his life, the British-born Islamic State fighter agreed to meet with family members of his victims.
It was healing. It was a good thing. But I couldn't have done it without Jim and my faith in God.
What do you think Jim would say about your work today?
Good work, Mom. Keep it up. Obviously, I would prefer that it was Jim doing this work, but in my own way, I'm trying, in my imperfect way, to do what I like to think he would have wanted to do with the rest of his life.